Hey everybody, this is Pastor Jason. I am over here at the Aycock Park in beautiful downtown Teague. You're probably wondering what's he doing wandering around downtown Teague, and that's kind of what I'm doing because there's not a lot of places that are open. Library is closed, the bank is closed except for appointments. All of the traffic, transaction traffic has been directed down to the motor bank. And I see some people over in the furniture store, but there's just not a lot going on here in downtown. And it brings to light for me the amount of things that we just do without even thinking about it. And the reality of all this is really starting to set in. You know, that term wandering is really interesting because that's the term that we ascribe to the Israelites when they came out of Egypt. When Moses God called Moses and Moses told Pharaoh to let the people go. When they were in Egypt, we forget that they didn't really have an identity as a people. They knew they were children of Abraham, but they didn't have the Old Testament law that we have now. They had this oral tradition, and when they left Egypt and they made it across the Red Sea, they weren't ready to take over the land that God had promised Abraham years before. And so what you have in the wilderness, what we call the wanderings in the wilderness, was really a time of preparation. In this time where they weren't ready to go into the promised land yet, it was there that God showed them who they were as a people. And through Moses' leadership, God gave them some things, and the most important thing that God gave them during this time was the 10 Commandments. And y'all know them, and the first and foremost was, you shall have no other gods before me. And the second was, don't make idols in the images of other gods and worship them. God was establishing a covenant with the people so that when they did go into the promised land, the land of Canaan, they would understand what was expected of them so that they could be the people that God was calling them to be. Folks, this is a lot like the wilderness wanderings. The things that, just like the Israelites that had been kicked out of Egypt, not kicked out, but had been led out of Egypt, they had been pulled from the only home they ever knew. In fact, many of them said, Moses, why have you brought us here to the desert to die? Were there not any graves in Egypt that you had to bring us out here? And so as we go through this time of difficulty where a lot of the things that have been important to us have been taken away, it's important to remember that there's a plan and a purpose at work here. And for the Israelites, this was a time of preparation. It was a time of discovering their identity. And so my prayer for us as a church is that while we are in this time of waiting for businesses to be open again, waiting for schools to go back to normal and for sports to come back and all the things that we're waiting on, my prayer is this would be a time of discovery, of discovering who we are in Christ, that this time of waiting would be a time where we really figure out who God is to us and what it is that God expects of us, not just as individuals, but also as a church. So that's my prayer for us today, this week, as this is like the 4th or 5th week that we've been doing life like this together, and it's not going to be the last, unfortunately. But use this time as a time of discovery to figure out what God is calling us to be as we wait on God to deliver us back into the promised land. I hope this finds you well today. May God bless you and keep you until this crisis is over.